Hello everyone, and welcome to History of the Ancient World. Today, we're journeying high into the Andes Mountains of South America to explore one of the most remarkable civilizations in history, the Inca Empire. Forget what you think you know about ancient empires. The Inca did things differently. In just over a century, they built a massive, sophisticated society stretching for thousands of miles, all without the use of wheels, written language as we know it, or even iron tools. How did they do it? Let's find out. Our story begins not with a bang, but with a whisper in the fertile valley of Cusco, in modern-day Peru. Around the 12th century, a small tribe, the Incas, settled here. For a few hundred years, they were just one of many small groups in the region. Their origin story is shrouded in myth, with tales of the sun god, Inti, sending his children, Manco Capac and Mama Oclo, to find the perfect spot to start a civilization. They carried a golden staff, and where it sank into the earth, that was the place. That place was Cusco, which in the Quechua language means the navel of the world. For centuries, Cusco was their home, their city-state. But it wasn't until the 15th century that the Inca truly began their meteoric rise. The man who lit the fuse was a prince who would become one of history's great empire builders. His name was Kusi Yupanqui, but we know him better as Pachacuti. In 1438, the neighboring Chenca people launched a massive attack on Cusco. The reigning Inca king and his heir fled, believing all was lost. But Pachacuti stayed. He rallied the city's defenders and, against all odds, led them to a stunning victory. This victory was the turning point. Pachacuti wasn't content just to defend, he was a visionary. He took the title Sapa Inca, or the only Inca, and began a period of unprecedented expansion. He didn't just conquer, he absorbed. He reorganized the government, rebuilt Cusco into a magnificent capital city shaped like a puma, and established the systems that would allow the empire to flourish. He was the architect of the Inca Empire. His name, Pachacuti, literally means he who remakes the world. And that's exactly what he did. Under Pachacuti and his successors, the empire, known to its people as Tawantinsuyu, or the Four Regions, grew at an incredible speed. From southern Colombia down to central Chile, it was a land of staggering diversity. It encompassed coastal deserts, high-altitude grasslands, and dense Amazonian jungles. Managing such a vast and varied territory was a monumental challenge. So, how did they pull it off? The answer lies in Inca ingenuity. First, let's talk about their road system. The Chapacñan, or Royal Road, was an engineering marvel. It was a network of over 25,000 miles of roads, connecting every corner of the empire. These weren't just dirt tracks. They were paved, with stairways cut into mountain sides, suspension bridges woven from grass spanning terrifying chasms, and drainage systems to handle the mountain rains. These roads were the arteries of the empire. Along them, an army could move swiftly, goods could be transported, and information could travel faster than anywhere else in the Americas. And how did that information travel? This is where it gets really interesting. Without a writing system, the Inca used a device called a quipu. A quipu was a collection of knotted strings. The type of knot, its position on the string, the color of the string, and the way the strings were arranged all held meaning. For a long time, we thought they were just for accounting, tracking census data, warehouse inventories, and tax obligations. But recent research suggests they might have been much more, possibly even a form of three-dimensional narrative or storytelling. Elite administrators, known as quipucamayos, or keepers of the quipus, could read these knotted records, ensuring the smooth operation of the empire. To move information and goods, the Inca relied on a relay system of runners called chasquis. These were young men, trained to be incredibly fast and have amazing endurance. Stations, or tambos, were set up every few miles along the road. A chasqui would run his leg of the journey, carrying a quipu or a verbal message, and pass it to the next runner. This system was so efficient that a message could travel over 150 miles in a single day. The Sapa Inca in Cusco could dine on fresh fish from the Pacific coast, hundreds of miles away, brought to him by the chasqui network. The economic foundation of the empire was agriculture, but it wasn't simple farming. The Inca were masters of their environment. They developed terrace farming, or andines, carving steps into the steep mountain slopes. These terraces created level plots of land, reduced erosion, and allowed for sophisticated irrigation. They grew hundreds of varieties of potatoes, quinoa, and corn, storing vast surpluses in storehouses called kolkas. This leads us to one of the core principles of Inca society: reciprocity and redistribution. There was no currency. Instead, the empire operated on a system of labor tax called mitha. Every able-bodied man was required to work for the state for a certain number of days each year. This labor built the roads, the terraces, the temples, and staffed the armies. In return, the state provided for its people. It distributed food from its storehouses during times of famine, provided clothing, and sponsored massive state-run feasts and religious festivals. It was a complex social contract. You work for the empire, and the empire takes care of you. At the very top of this society was the Sapa Inca, a divine ruler believed to be a direct descendant of the sun god Inti. His power was absolute. Below him was a hierarchy of nobles and administrators. Cusco was the political and religious heart of it all. Its centerpiece was the Coricancha, the temple of the sun, said to be covered in sheets of solid gold. Gold, for the Inca, wasn't about wealth in the way we think of it. It was the sweat of the sun, a sacred substance representing divine power. The empire reached its peak in the early 16th century under Sapa Inca Huayna Capac. It was a thriving, complex, and powerful state, a unique achievement in human history. But cracks were beginning to show. As the empire grew, it became harder to manage. More importantly, as Huayna Capac was consolidating his northern territories, a strange new disease swept through the land, something the people had never seen before. It was likely smallpox, brought unknowingly by European explorers further north. The disease devastated the population. One of its victims was Huayna Capac himself, who died around 1527. His death created a power vacuum. He had not clearly named a successor, leading to a brutal civil war between two of his sons, Huascar and Atahualpa. For 5 long years, the empire tore itself apart. Atahualpa eventually emerged victorious, but the empire was weakened, divided, and reeling from the plague. And it was at this precise moment of weakness, in 1532, that a small group of Spanish conquistadors, led by Francisco Pizarro, arrived on the coast. Pizarro had only about 180 men, a handful of horses, and a few cannons. It seems impossible that they could topple an empire of millions. But they had several advantages: steel armor, steel swords, firearms, and horses, which were terrifying to the Inca. They also carried invisible allies: the deadly European diseases that continued to ravage the population. Pizarro arranged a meeting with the victorious Atahualpa in the town of Cajamarca. It was a trap. The Spanish ambushed Atahualpa's retinue, massacring thousands and capturing the Sapa Inca himself. Atahualpa, believing the Spanish valued gold and silver above all else, offered a ransom. He promised to fill a large room once with gold and twice with silver. The Inca delivered on their promise, stripping temples and palaces of their treasures. But Pizarro had no intention of letting him go. After receiving the ransom, the Spanish executed Atahualpa in 1533. With the divine king dead, the empire's command structure crumbled. The Spanish installed a puppet Inca ruler and marched on the capital, Cusco, capturing it with relative ease. While the Inca people mounted fierce resistance for decades, led by figures like Manco Inca, the empire as a unified state was broken. The Spanish conquest was a catastrophe, not just militarily, but culturally and demographically. The legacy of the Inca Empire, however, is not just one of conquest and collapse. It's a story of incredible human achievement. It's in the stone walls of Cusco and Machu Picchu, where massive stones are fitted together so perfectly without mortar that you can't slip a knife blade between them. It's in the thousands of miles of roads that still snake through the Andes. It's in the Quechua language, still spoken by millions of people today. The Inca Empire shows us that there are many different ways to build a great civilization, and their story, a mix of brilliant innovation and tragic downfall, continues to fascinate and inspire us. Thanks for joining us on this journey to the Andes. If you enjoyed learning about the Inca, be sure to like this video, subscribe to History of the Ancient World, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time.